Please welcome Ascent Classical Academy Principal, Dr. Terrence Moore.
Keep on rocking in the free world.
All right, good morning. How are you all doing today? Excellent. I'd like to pick up on a few things that Secretary Bennett and Senator Scott were saying and give you an idea of what is possible and what ought to become fashionable in this world, in this country, in terms of schools. So I want you to imagine with me a moment a kind of a school and what happens there on a daily basis. Imagine a school, K through 12, where all the children show up in a pretty nice uniform. Not because they're snotty or anything like that, but because their minds can be concentrated on learning, and so moms don't have fights with their daughters every morning about what they wear. Imagine that before school even starts, they hear from a couple of the principals. Already some learning going on. For example, an assistant principal who reads through the K through 2 students some of Bill Bennett's Book of Virtues. The principal who talks with the 3rd through 6th graders and walks them through all the presidents of the United States. This is even before the day begins. They go quietly from the cafeteria or from the gym into their classrooms, not as a rabble, but as quiet lines of respectful students. They go to their desks, and the first thing they do in the morning is say the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the school pledge. I will learn the true, I will do the good, I will love the beautiful. And then they get down to work. The younger kids are going to be working first thing on phonics. They're going to learn their alphabet explicitly. They're going to know how to spell words and why they're spelled the way that they are. They will all be good readers. Up in the 2nd and 3rd grade, they're going to continue on spelling, but they're also going to start getting into grammar with diagramming. They're going to know what an appositive is. They're going to know not to split infinitives. They're going to know how to use the subjunctive. And please help me, as a nation, as a people, get the like, whatever, out of the vocabulary of our young people. They're also going to start working on their handwriting very early on, and by the 2nd grade, they're going to start learning cursive. Because it's beautiful, and it helps them write fast. They're also going to study great stories that are life-ennobling, that they will remember for the rest of their lives. They will study history. They'll first encounter the American Revolution in the 1st grade. They'll study it again in the 4th grade. In the 4th grade, they will know the first 248 words of the Declaration of Independence and be able to recite them. How many of our nation's leaders these days can do that, I wonder? There's a pop test for another time. They'll start as early as the 5th grade studying theology and understand about the Reformation and the Counter-Reformation and be able to talk about very complex ideas. In the 8th grade, continuing with their study of history, they will first encounter philosophy, to include some ancient philosophy, some ideas that Aristotle put forward, and also modern philosophy starting from the Enlightenment on. How many of you seen the movie Daddy Daycare with Eddie Murphy? You remember that movie? I was watching that movie with my son and children the other day, and at the end of it, my 6th grader, who had been through this 6th grade curriculum that I'm describing, said, "Dad, you know that was a funny movie, but it was very Rousseauist." What percentage of the people who left Daddy Daycare when it first played had the adjective Rousseauist at hand to describe what was indeed a very Rousseauist movie? Such is the thought that goes on in the 6th grade at one of these academies. Well, they continue to learn, and it's not just the humanities they learn, but they will learn the physical sciences. For example, in the 5th grade where they study chemistry, they will likely have an elements bee in which they will know every single element on the periodic chart and have a prize who goes to the winner. Also, they will study formally in the 8th grade the Constitution and spend an entire quarter studying just the Constitution of the United States so that they understand what we mean when we say we're a government of laws and not of men. In the 9th grade, they learn a lot of things, they enjoy learning, but it's also the quality of their souls that we're interested in. And so these stories that we teach them and these great stories that occur in history will shape their conscience and their hearts. And I want to give you an example of that. We hear a lot about how teenagers these days are jaded and they're just on their iPhones all the time. They're really checked out. They care about video games and nothing else. Let me tell you about a discussion that takes place every year in the 9th grade in any classical school that I've been associated with. It's when the students are reading all of the Iliad. And what happens in the Iliad, of course, is Troy is going to be sacked. It's going to be destroyed. And the great hero of Troy, Hector, knows that he will be killed, and quite likely his wife and son will be sold into slavery. And so he comes back during this moment when he's away from the battlefield, and he holds up his son, and he prays, "I pray that he will be a better man than I am." And then there's a memorable scene where his helmet flashes into the eyes of his son, and it causes him to cry. And for this brief, fleeting moment, the wife, Andromache, and Hector cry together, but they also laugh, knowing that life will be over for them soon. Every year, our 9th graders, when we get to that story, weep, because they know what we know intuitively, and this is why we care about education in this country. Because what we want for our children is for them to be better than we are, to have better chances than we had, to be able to carry on the traditions, but also to improve and to be better men and women. That is why we go back to the past, because in the past we find the wisdom and the greatness of our great teachers from Aristotle and even before on to the founding fathers who know exactly what an education was and who script that for us if we would but follow it. In the high school, they will study not 1, 2, but 3 semesters of American history, reading original sources by the founding fathers who then become their teachers. And as a completion of this education, they will have to write a senior thesis of 20 pages and defend it orally in front of their fellow students, the principals, the teachers, and their family, which is a rite of passage that takes them into their further studies or their careers. That, my friends, is something that I didn't have until I was defending a doctoral dissertation in Edinburgh, Scotland. But this is something that graduates of these schools have to do. It is a rite of passage. Now, I have bad news for you, and I have good news for you. The bad news is the current educational establishment does not like what I just described. And they will do everything that they can to defeat it or to keep it out of existence. And as much as we try to labor for school choice in this country and we set up pretty good laws like the state of Colorado has, as soon as those who are in power, a school board or whomever, hear about classical education, they want to try to find a way to shut it down. And I think it's because they know that it's so counterculture to what the establishment is doing now. That is the bad news. The good news is this is what parents want, this is what families want, and this is what students want. Because what you find in these classical schools, so far from what you'll receive from the culture, is that children thrive when they are challenged. Children thrive when they're given good things to think about. And so all the things that we hear these days about STEM and about college and career readiness are not taking us down the path to college and career readiness, and they're certainly not taking us down the path to building good citizens and human beings. Because, guess what, folks? Jobs do not make the human mind. The human mind makes jobs. We need to be in the business of training human minds on the best that has been thought, said, done, and discovered, and training their hearts on the moral stories that will shape them so that they will want to be good and to do the good in their own lives, and so that they will actually know and have the language of the virtues, beginning with the virtue of courage, which is something that, alas, is in short supply these days. The good news is that a lot of these schools exist. The school that I just described is, in fact, there are about 16 or 17 of them that I've helped put in place through the Hillsdale Charter Initiative. And that's why I'm back in Colorado hoping with Ascent Classical Academies to bring more of these schools, one being Golden View that's already been in operation now going on 3 years. We want to bring these schools to your neighborhoods so that we can help shape great human beings and citizens. Because our ultimate goal, as Jefferson told us a long time ago when he was talking about education and politics, our ultimate goal is freedom and happiness. Thank you.